The Marvel multiverse is filled with intriguing and varying different alternate realities. While there's a whole lot of gossip on the interwebs concerning how far into this multiverse we might get to see in the MCU, from the standpoint of the comics, there's a whole lot of surreal, absurd, and fascinating events that have gone down, involving some of our favorite characters as alternate versions of themselves. And sometimes, those alternates are downright terrifying, as are their alternate worlds. So today we are returning to our list of the top 10 scariest alternate versions of Avengers with a part 2. This time around we're going to avoid including any versions of the Hulk on this list since our part 1 was pretty heavy with the big green fella. Now some of these versions are objectively scary while other alternates are considerably more tragic. So with that in mind, let's get to it. In at number 10, Marvel 1602's Black Widow. Out of all of our scary alternates on this list, this version of Black Widow is perhaps the most tame. But why is she terrifying? It's because she uses her skills and abilities for some straight up evil stuff. This Natasha is from Earth 311 from Marvel 1602, a world in which she's a freelance spy and is considered the most dangerous woman in all of Europe. From Neil Gaiman and Andy Kubert, the Marvel 1602 series is an alternate reality in which we see our favorite Marvel characters operating during the year 1602 in Europe. The world is very much like it is on Earth 616 in that time period as well. Now Natasha had previously worked alongside Matthew Murdock, but then betrayed him for Count Otto von Doom. Otto Octavius and Victor von Doom smoked together. She ended up becoming the villain's lover. She worked with him during the kidnapping of William Shakespeare, serving as the captain of his flying ship, up until she started questioning his authority and his plans, which resulted in him pushing her over the side of the ship to her death. What a way to go. Up next, number 9, Age of X Steve Rogers from Earth 11326. Here we have a version of Steve Rogers who's all for the killing and hunting of mutants, or at least he was in the beginning. As the leader of the Avengers, it was his job to hunt mutants down. During one mission in particular, he ends up giving into his bloodlust and kills Mystique, justifying her death as the right thing to do, because she was dangerous. That's when he discovers that she was actually protecting a group of mutant children. Steel Corpse, who is the alternative Tony Stark on that Earth, suffers from an emergency override with his armor and attempts to kill the children anyway, triggering the man inside the suit to inform Rogers to not save him but to save the kids instead. Steve ends up shooting him in the back of his head. This Steve is then killed while battling the Hulk, with Legacy then absorbing his memories as a way of saying thank you for changing his ways and attempting to help mutants in the end. He turns out for the better, but I guess, you know, bloodlust is still pretty scary, right? Moving on to number 8, Hawkeye of Earth 11223. This version of Hawkeye is a product of the What If Dark Reign title from issue 1 volume 1. In this story set on Earth 11223, Clint is a member of the Avengers, as per usual. The team goes after the X-Men believing they are involved in the deaths of Tony Stark and Beast. That's when Hawkeye pretty much gets his butt handed to him by Sabretooth. Ultimately, his life is spared by the mutants, but it only gets more tragic for the sharpshooter from there on out. He heads back to the Avengers mansion only to witness it getting completely destroyed, with all of the remaining Avengers being killed in the process. So Hawkeye takes matters into his own hands and seeks out the culprit, Norman Osborn, believing that he doesn't deserve to live, and that killing him is the only way to end his reign of terror. Dark Hawkeye. And at number 7, Venom Thor from Earth 1089. This alternative Thor comes from What If Volume 2 Issue 4, in a story called What If the Alien Costume Had Possessed Spider-Man. The alien costume it's referring to is Venom prior to the character coming into his full-fledged Eddie Brock hosted glory. In this hypothetical tale, Peter Parker doesn't seek out the help of Reed Richards like he does on the 616 Earth. Instead, the Venom symbiote stays bonded to Parker until he begins to sniff out some stronger potential hosts, having used up all of Parker's adrenaline in the process. Now initially, the Venom symbiote jumps to the Hulk, but when he sets eyes on Thor, he ditches Hulk and heads over to the Asgardian god. Thor's tenure as Venom is brief, with Reed Richards employing the help of Black Bolt to use his sonic scream to separate Thor from Venom before the two are permanently bonded. But in the process, Black Bolt does destroy Mount Rushmore. But hey, at least Thor ends up getting free of the symbiote. That's at least good, right? I mean, it's only Mount Rushmore. In at number 6, the Ultimate Black Widow. This version of Black Widow is notably worse than the one we mentioned previously. I mean, she is, higher up on the list, so kind of a given. The Ultimate 1610 universe in general gives us a grim take on beloved Marvel characters, exploring different aspects of their character personality traits that were never ventured into in the 616 universe. This Black Widow is a prime example of that. Her origin story is similar to her 616 beginnings, but the reason she's called Black Widow is thanks to a reputation she's cultivated by killing her husbands, marrying frequently, and then assassinating them. Or rather, they would end up suffering from unfortunate accidents. She eventually defected from the KGB to the US and joined S.H.I.E.L.D. She would later marry Tony Stark, who gave her an all-black suit of Iron Man armor and a set of nanites that bonded to her skin in order to control the suit, all as an engagement present. But now here's where it gets awkward for Tony. Turns out Natasha is a traitor and reveals the identity of the Hulk, frames Captain America and Thor, and then aids the Liberators with their invasion of the US, all as a way to seek revenge for Russia, believing that the US made her country into a bankrupt nation of hookers and gangsters. She then kills Jarvis, holds Tony hostage in an attempt to extort him of his fortune, but then Tony uses the nanites in her body to freeze her in place, knocks her unconscious with a wine bottle, giving her brain damage. And then, when she's hospitalized, Hawkeye comes after her, shooting her in the head with one of his arrows, all because she was partially responsible for his family's death. Talk about dark. Up next at 5, Herald of Galactus Thor from Earth 717. Here we have another what if story concerning Thor, from Volume 1 of What If Thor Issue 1. This Thor appears in a story called What If Thor Was the Herald of Galactus. It's a bleak tale in which Thor, upon Galactus' arrival at Asgard, realizes that fighting against the Devourer of Worlds is futile, and ends up striking a deal with the cosmic entity instead. Leave Asgard alone and he would become Galactus' herald. He goes around informing the inhabitants of various planets that Galactus has chosen their worlds to satiate his appetite, and that their homes could not be spared. Destruction was inevitable. Eventually though, Thor ends up returning to his home on Asgard briefly, only to discover that his father Odin has been killed by Loki, and the trickster god has imprisoned all of his pals. So Thor rescues those remaining alive, sends them to Earth, and then brings Galactus to Asgard to consume it. Up next at 4, Vampire Captain America from 3931. Cap has a history of transforming into supernatural beings. Cap Wolf, anybody? This time around though, this Steve Rogers from Earth 3931 is a different horror movie being. He's a vampire. On this Earth, Steve was infected with vampirism during World War II by Baron Blood, who on this Earth is actually a vampire badass humanoid creature. After being bitten, Rogers develops new powers and ends up infecting the rest of the Avengers team, making them his personal slaves. The Exiles would encounter him when trying to fix his world, and eventually Rogers was decapitated, but that was not the end of him. He ends up surviving and reattaches his head to his body. From vampires to zombies, in at our next number we have Marvel Zombies Hawkeye from Earth 2149. We featured the zombie versions of the Avengers on our last list, but this time we're gonna get a bit more specific and look at one Avengers member in particular who has quite the compelling and eerie arc, Clint Barton of Earth 2149. Hawkeye's past is presumably the same as the 616 Hawkeye up until the zombie plague. When the Avengers attempted to stop the Sentry who had been infected, he bites all of them, overpowering them and infecting them. During the siege on Castle Doomstadt in Latveria, zombie Hawkeye is decapitated by Magneto. He uses Steve Rogers' shield to do so. Flash forward to 40 years later. T'Challa's grandson finds a very confused and incoherent head in the rubble of New York. Hawkeye is still alive but has gone insane thanks to, well, just being a head. He's taken back to T'Challa, who realizes that Hawkeye's hunger has dissipated and ends up giving him the Wasp's glass domed suit to use as a body. He's later killed by the Hulk, who smashes his head in, crushing it, killing him once and for all. In at number 2, Skeletal Peter Parker from Earth 9811. Shout out to Smasher for the suggestion for this number. So this version of Spider-Man comes from What If Volume 2, Issue 114 from 1998, Issue 114 from 1998, in a story called Brave New World. It's a different take on Secret Wars, with the participants of that story event being trapped on Battleworld, never returning to Earth. And it's 25 years after the Secret Wars event, the first one that is. They're forced to settle down, with many of the heroes and villains getting married and having kids. Now in the midst of all this, we see Spider-Man still wearing the black symbiote costume, aka Venom, something that he had had removed by Reed Richards after Secret Wars. But here's the kicker: because he never got the chance to get it removed, it permanently bonded to him, with the symbiote eventually consuming Peter's body entirely, leaving only a skeleton. At one point in the story, we see the symbiote jump off of Peter's skeleton when affected by a sonic attack, revealing that Parker has been dead for a very very long time, and Venom has been running the show. Peter's mind hasn't totally been possessed by the symbiote though, which perhaps makes this even creepier. And finally, in at number 1, Dark Beast from Earth 295. While Beast is largely considered to be a member of the X-Men, it's not the only team in the comics that he was ever a part of. Once upon a time, he was a member of the Avengers too. He's also been a member of the Secret Avengers and the Defenders. He gets around a lot when it comes to superhero teams fighting for justice. But you know who doesn't? His dark counterpart, who hails from Earth 295, the Age of Apocalypse timeline, in which Charles Xavier was killed off, leading to Magneto leading the Resistance, and Apocalypse attacking sooner. Apocalypse manages to conquer North America because of it. So how does Xavier's absence turn Beast into a villain? Well, without Charles around, Beast's intelligence and desire for experimentation were unhindered by morals and ethics. He wasn't compassionate like his 616 counterpart. So he ends up becoming one of Apocalypse's chief scientists, who tortures and experiments on both humans and mutants unethically, including Cyclops and Jean Grey, which is how he ends up getting the nickname Beast, since he's so damn cruel and gruesome. He ends up escaping from that reality before it's blown to smithereens, coming to Earth 616. He then pretends to be 616 Hank McCoy, killing off the childhood friends of that Beast in order to cover his tracks, and eventually joins up with Onslaught. Alright, there we have it friends. So out of our part 1 and part 2 lists, which of these alternates would you rank to be the scariest? Give us a shout in those comments below and let us know your thoughts. If you liked this video, please spread the love, hit that like button, and be sure to subscribe to Top 10 Nerd for more lists just like this one. And hey, maybe we'll do a part 3. In the meantime though, thanks for watching friends. I'll catch you on the next video.